All right, man. Let's talk about the Pistons clinching their 50th win and they clinch a playoff spot. So with the win over the Golden State Warriors, so I think it's the first time they won 50 wins since 2008, 9 or something like that. I mean, uh, I don't think anybody thought they were. Damn, Christoph Porzingis got injured in the loss too. you know, uh, well they get 50 wins. So playoff spot, 50 wins. But I don't think anybody thought that they were not going to, clinch a playoff spot. They have a winning record without Cade this season. That really means nothing. But Detroit Pistons clinch a playoff spot Friday night with the win over the Golden State Warriors. It says the Pistons have rebounded from their four-game losing streak earlier this month, and a lot of that was self-inflicted, man. Resting guys versus Brooklyn, that was self-inflicted, man. That was a big self-inflicted one, man. Um, and it seemed like even before Cade had that injury, he was starting to kind of get wore down. That's something nobody was talking about. He really had a hell of a burst when Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Dern, went out. He really kind of, that took a lot of legs out of him. So they have fresh legs. Now he getting a chance to rest his legs. So, but they've been without superstar guard Kay Cunningham in all three wins. Aside from 6 minutes of playing time from him suffering a collapsed lung against the Wizards. The timeline for Kay recovery is unclear. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks, but it's not guaranteed he'll be healthy after 2 weeks. Pistons head coach J.B. Bickerstaff and his coaching staff will truly be tested as the regular season comes to close. Adversity has struck the Pistons this month of March harder than all season. You're gonna have rocky moments. And the most important part is they beat the teams that they supposed to beat. Which is the Warriors, the Grizzlies. I mean the Warriors, Grizzlies, and the Wizards. And now you literally have to, beat the Lakers, the Hawks, and the Pelicans. You have to try to piece it up and beat those three teams. That's just what it is. Now the Lakers might be a tough out coming here, but you got to piece them up. You got to get the Pelicans, get the Hawks, if you can get that Laker game, you're in a great position. As the head coach of number one team in the Eastern Conference, as the head coach with plenty of postseason experience, it's up to him to hold everyone accountable. I'm not concerned about that. The matchup Detroit doesn't want. We're not really worried about matching up against Miami. We don't care. We'll fuck Miami up. If K come back, Miami ain't nobody. I'm not worried about Miami. I'm sorry. So, if that's what this article is about, I'm not worried about Miami at all. We're not worried about Miami. They get in, we don't really care. If we got Cade, we gonna smack them. If we don't got Cade, we won't probably lose that series. That's just versus anybody at the A spot. So that's the reality of it. So, but getting 50 wins, I think that was very important to the Pistons. That's something they hadn't done in a long time. From 14 wins, a couple seasons ago. You know, uh, that's crazy. So hold on real quick. Um, so um it says the Detroit Pistons. Give me 1 second. So the Detroit Pistons have secured their 50th win. That's a 25-26 NBA season by defeating Washington Wizards. Oh, it was the Wizards. They got their 50th win then. Okay, shout out to them. Um, Marcel, now where they sitting at? Let me see real quick. I thought it was versus the Warriors. They got their 50th win, but they got 50 wins. Let's see if we can get there. It's up 51. So yeah, 50 first time since what did they say? See if we can find that. From 2000, 2007, 2008 campaign. Um so yeah, I mean I think that's a huge accomplishment. And quite frankly, making the playoffs is a huge accomplishment. Possibly being the number one seed, And that Brooklyn win, and that abysmal loss to Washington, thinking February, might come back to bite them in the ass. And, one of the bigger things that came back to bite them in their hindsight was just the fact of the nature that, they didn't get to kill Alexander Walker and had to settle for Karis LeVert, because Nikhil Alexander Walker was their intended target. But, ultimately this thing, hopefully in its, from in its infancy, it's young. It's young. It is young. So hopefully they can make the right moves from here on out. They got all their draft picks. But I feel like what they done and what Trajan Langdon done in 2 seasons, it needs to be, it needs to be put on a pedestal now. You know, but it seemed like the Lions had a quick rise. Uh, you know, um, you know, it seemed like it was just, short lived as of right now. You know, but but hopefully this is something they can sustain. You know, hopefully this is something that they can say they can sustain. And if they can't, and if it's just if they can't, uh, you just hope like we ain't front running, we ain't just enjoying it, kicking it, right now, and it's just short lived. Hopefully, it's something they can extend out. But you got so many players that just can't stay healthy, ain't durable, and then you got to ask yourself what they gonna do with Jalen Duren. Obviously, at this point, you pay him, but also what's the character like? Did he just ball out because it was time to get paid? And I just feel like E is important to what they do because you can mold him however you want to. It's already a pretty good defensive player right now. Offensively, he putting it together. You like to see that rebound and more around 12 rebounds a game, but he young, figuring out the ankle issues. So, Caden Duran, that's the core right there. And you just hope that a guy like Asar Thompson can, or Ryan Hollins or both can shoot the ball a lot better than they have been shooting the ball. That's what you hope. So, great win for the boys. 51 wins. Playoff clinch a playoff spot. Appreciate shout out to them. Great job. Thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And the subscribe button is the bell icon button. Hit all notifications. Increase your chance. Get notifications. We go live, drop video. Peace.